Welcome to Friendo Today, and today we are talking about the $10 founding father without a father who got a lot farther by working a lot harder, by being a lot smarter, by being, what was it? Oh, yes, a self-starter. Sorry. We're talking about...
Oh!
That's right. We are talking about the future of the Supreme Court, but to know where you ought to go, it helps to know where you've been. Now, in our last video, we took a look at Article 3 of the Constitution, the part about the judiciary, and found that it was pretty vague. Fortunately, we have the Federalist Papers. Now, the Federalist Papers were a series of essays written by a few of the founding fathers to sell the Constitution to the new nation. And in these essays, they explain a lot of the decision-making in the Constitution itself. Hamilton, being the prodigious fellow that he is, he wrote most of them. And we're going to be looking at one of his, specifically Federalist Paper number 78. Now, in this paper, Hamilton outlines a lot of the founders' thinking in terms of judicial independence and judicial authority. Let's get right into it. So one of the first things that Hamilton points out is that structurally, the judiciary is weak. They don't control the money, Congress does. They don't control the army, the president does, the executive branch does. Which means that all they have are their judgments, and essentially they are then reliant on the other branches, the executive in particular, to actually enforce and follow their judgments. However, you don't want a weak judiciary. You want a judiciary that is independent and strong so it can act as a check on the other branches of government, so it can strike down legislation that is in violation of the Constitution, so it can limit the actions of a president that are kind of outside the bounds of the Constitution and law. So you have this tension between what is structurally a pretty weak branch of government and what you want is a pretty ideally strong, independent branch of government. So the founders hoped to encourage that with certain provisions in the Constitution. Primary among those being the term of good behavior, aka a lifetime appointment for justices. This was meant to make the judicial branch strong so it can serve as a check on the other branches of government. However, even with that in the Constitution, the judicial branch was not initially a particularly powerful branch of government, and we will get into that. They had to fight for their power over time, and they did get it. And all of this, I think, is actually a little strange to hear for a modern listener, because we are used to a very powerful Supreme Court that almost seems superior to the legislative branch. That really wasn't the ideal either. Hamilton didn't want the Supreme Court to be superior to the legislature. He wanted the power of the people to be superior to both. And insofar as the power of the people is declared in the Constitution, when a legislative act runs afoul of the will of the people within the Constitution, that legislative act should be struck down. Now, it is important to note that he's talking about the will of the people in the Constitution. Hamilton was not a big power to the people guy in his actual nature, but even for him himself, we see the roots of it is the consent of the governed, which gives legitimacy to a government. To further kind of hammer in on that sort of anti-democratic nuance there, Hamilton does explicitly say that they had hoped the judicial branch would serve as a safeguard against the occasional ill humors of society. So it is intended to be a counter-majoritarian branch of government. So, looking at all of that, what was the founders' vision for judicial authority and independence? They wanted a Supreme Court that was independent of politics as much as was possible. They failed almost immediately out of the gate on that front, and we will see that in our next video. On top of that, they wanted one that had the ability to strike down unconstitutional actions by the other branches of government. And it seems as if they've succeeded on that front. The Supreme Court, as it stands right now, can and does do that, and has done that for a very long time. But, as I noted, it did not originally actually have the power to do that. And that evolution of power is what we will be getting into in our next video. Until then, If you liked all this, like, subscribe, comment, yada, yada, yada. I have a stream. Check it out in the description below. I don't know. Blah, 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 blah. It's the Supreme Court. Let's go.
Oh!